Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and I was always told I had a voice for radio, so today I'm going to show you a really pretty gosh darn good Garchomp list. This was piloted by the lovely Andrew Emerson at the recent Liverpool Regional Championships, and he made top 8. He was the number 1 seed after day 1 out of 265 players with his Garchomp list. And you know what I've said in his videos? I don't want to bring you rubbishy lists. I want to bring you good lists, tested lists, lists with which you can win. So, starting off, let's have a look at the Pokemon. It's a Gyarados list. We play 4 Magikarp. You kind of have to play 4 Magikarp. I mean, that should be fairly obvious. What's less obvious is playing 3 Gyarados. Gyarados, we're only looking at the first attack here, 30 damage plus 30 for each damage counter on each Magikarp in play. Now, I've done a video about how this deck works, there's a link in the description. This really is more looking at the list, but we'll pop a few things in as we go. But if you don't know too much about the deck, I'd recommend watching that video. Now, why do we only play 3 Gyarados? Because we only need 3 Gyarados. There are other things in the list we need. We are playing a whole bunch of recovery cards here. We are playing 4 Buddy Buddy Rescue. We are playing 4 Puzzle of Time. We are able to get our Gyarados back. We don't really want to be building up Gyarados. Let's say you're playing a Raichu list. You want 4 Raichu on the bench ready to go. Gyarados, you only ever want 1 at a time. The attack does more damage based on how many Magikarp you have on the bench with damage on. Ergo, you only ever want an active Gyarados. You never want more than 1. We've got loads of recovery cards. We don't need 4 Gyarados in this deck. And by cutting Gyarados, we can find a space for another card. 2 Shaymin, it's Shaymin. Shaymin helps you to set up. Why 2? You don't want to play too many EXs. The really good thing about Gyarados is that you're trading non-EXs for EXs. Your opponent's taking 1 prize, you're taking 2. But you still need to be able to set up. 1 Meowstic for the ability. Let's say something like Mega Rayquaza. Gyarados caps out at 210 damage. We are doing 30 damage plus 30 for each damage counter on each Magikarp. 30 HP means a maximum 6 damage counters on the bench. 6 times 30 is 180, add 30 is 210. That will not KO a Rayquaza. So Meowstic allows you to move a damage counter from one of your Pokemon, say Meowstic himself or your active Gyarados, onto your opponent's Rayquaza, then you hit for 210. You need Meowstic to hit for these numbers here. And 1 Mr. Mime. Why do we play 1 Mr. Mime? Well, you have all of your Magikarp on the bench with 10 HP remaining. So any card that can do 10 damage to all of your Pokemon, think Golbat, think Spinda, think Promo Celebi, can just attack and knock out all your Magikarps on the bench. So what you do is you grab a Mr. Mime. Mr. Mime's ability blocks bench damage and nothing happens. In terms of energy, it's 4 double colourless. This deck is consistent. It's meant to run, and it's meant to run well. In a 9-round tournament, Andrew got 7 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw. You do that by setting up. You only need double colourless to use the attack, so you only use double colourless. Now, in terms of the supporter line, 3 Sycamore and 2 N. This seems about right. You need to draw through your deck, but as we'll see in a minute, there's lots of consistency trainers that Andrew has. We don't mind discarding most of our things, because we're playing 4 Puzzle of Time, so an aggressive supporter like Sycamore's not the end of the world. N is the second best, so that's what we are filling up with. Why not 4 Sycamore? I'm not 100% sure. What I can tell you is this, and it's not the best answer ever, but sometimes this is what card choices come down to. This is what he tested. This is what ran the best in testing. If 4 Sycamore 1 N had run better, that's what he would have played. 2 Teammates. Teammates is amazing. Search for any 2 cards as long as you had a Pokemon KO'd the previous turn. And yeah, you're playing lots of weak Pokemon. You are going to have Pokemon KO'd every turn. This deck basically says, I'm going to lose a Gyarados every turn, but I'm just going to evolve a Magikarp that's already on the bench, attach a DCE, and bench a new Magikarp. So I'm okay with this, and Teammates means you can grab your DCE in Stadium, or you can grab your DCE in new Magikarp, or whatever. If you've still got your Stadium in play, when your Gyarados gets knocked out, you need Magikarp, Gyarados, energy. Well, Teammates guarantees 2 of those, so that's pretty nice. We've also got 1 Pokemon Ranger. This is absolutely vital for things like Glaceon, who blocks attacks from evolved Pokemon, and Giratina, who stops you attaching your double colourless or benching your stadium. Stops any effects of attacks other than damage, blah blah blah. You need Ranger for Glaceon and Giratina. You cannot beat those matchups without it. 1 Lysander, because it's Lysander. You need to take prizes off the bench, pick off an EX for 2 prizes, pick off their attacker they're building up. It's Lysander. Every deck plays Lysander. And similarly, 1 Hex Maniac. Every deck plays 1 Hex Maniac. There are too many situations where it's good. Let's say your opponent has got a couple of Zubats on the bench. You don't want them to evolve to Golbat, so you play a Hex Maniac to buy yourself a turn or 2. 4 Versus Seeker, because it's Versus Seeker. I have seen a couple lists recently that don't play 4 Versus Seeker. There's some logic behind them. The lists I'm showing you are all going to have 4 Versus Seeker in. It's too good. It just is. Now, in terms of the stadium, 4 Team Magma's secret base, you need to win the stadium war. Gyarados' attack does damage based on having damaged Magikarp. You need to have damaged Magikarp, and the only way to consistently and fast enough get damage on those Magikarp is Team Magma's secret base. Every Pokemon that gets benched takes 2 damage counters. Now, this also helps you hit the numbers. For instance, I've said you need Meowstic to 1-hit KO a Rayquaza. Well, if that Rayquaza is benched with a Magma's secret base out, then you actually won't need to use Meowstic. But this is just super good here. Meowstic, you can actually move damage from Meowstic onto your opponent's Pokemon, so it's good to have the damage on Meowstic here. This deck does not function without this stadium, and as I keep saying, we've got 4 Puzzle of Time here because we need to reuse Team Magma's secret base. We've got to win the stadium war. Speaking of which, let's have a very quick look at that. 4 Puzzle of Time. Now, you can play 1 and look at the top 3 cards of your deck and rearrange them. That's if you're drawing very, very poorly and you need to draw something now. Although, for some reason, there seems to be a rule that whenever you do that, you have to keep them in the same order. I don't know why, but 90% of the time I play single puzzle, I keep them in the same order. Hey-ho. But it's double Puzzle of Time we're looking for. You play 2 at the same time and you get to grab any 2 cards from your discard pile. And when you need to be reusing Magikarp and Gyarados, and you do, constantly, and you need to be reusing the stadium and you need to be reusing your double colourless, you can't really, I don't see how this deck would function without it. 4 Ultra Ball, 3 Dive Ball. I mean, your Ultra Ball gets you everything in the deck, even down to your Shaymins, your Mr. Mime, your Meowstic. Dive Ball, obviously a good alternative here. Your Dive Ball gets your Gyarados, your Dive Ball gets your Magikarp. So it's quite nice. Dive Ball gets most of the stuff. Meowstic, 1 at the beginning. Mr. Mime, maybe in some matchups. Shaymin when you need it. So we like the 4 Ultra Ball, the 3 Dive Ball. It just gives you a whole bunch of Pokemon search cards. Obviously a 4th Dive Ball would be nice, but, you know, space. And along those lines, 4 Trainer's Mail. Look at the top 4 cards of your deck, grab any trainer you find there and put it in your hand. It's just consistency. Find that second Puzzle of Time, find that stadium, find that Pokemon search card. 4 Buddy Buddy Rescue, as I've said, it's just grabbing it back again. It's just making sure you've got your Gyarados and your Magikarp. Both players grab a Pokemon out their discard. Something like Super Rod's fun, but the thing about Super Rod is it goes into your deck, then you've got to have the search card to find it, which leads to inconsistencies. And as I say in pretty much all my deck analyses, consistency is king, ladies and gentlemen. Setting up wins games. 2 Acro Bike. Now, Andrew told me that some of the lists doing the rounds have 3 Trainer's Mail, 3 Acro Bike, and what he said was he prefers Trainer's Mail. You sometimes end up using Acro Bike, and we've all been there, there's 2 double colourless, so you've got to discard a double colourless. Trainer's Mail is better, plus a lot of the time you're going to want to dig for something like the Stadium, and Trainer's Mail looks at 4 cards, Acro Bike only looks at 2. 2 Floatstone, because you need to be able to get out of the active with things like Meowstic and Mr. Mime, and 2 Floatstone is about right. It's a consistent list, you should draw into it. 1 Special Charge, because it gets your double colourless back in the deck. Some games you're going to need 6 Gyarados. Now, to be fair, and I spoke to Andrew about this, we had a good chat about the deck, and he told me that the deck isn't really designed, in not just this list, any list, to take 6 prizes. But you need to be able to have all that DCE special charge helps. And don't forget that you can double Puzzle of Time for special charge, so you can actually be recovering your DCEs all game long. Although I still prefer Trainer's Mail over Acrobike. 1 town map, because prizes in this deck are absolutely brutal. You cannot have Magikarp prized against Mega decks, and if you do, you need to get them out as soon as possible. Every Magikarp that's prized means 60 damage is taken away from your attacker instantly. You've got a Magikarp prized, all of a sudden the absolute most damage you can do is 150. Enough to KO something like a Shaman EX, but not enough to KO something like a Gardevoir EX. 1 Escape Rope, because it's just a good card. It's another switching card to get out of the active, but a lot of the time when you play something like Escape Rope, your opponent's forced to put up a Hooper or a Shaman or something useless on their bench. Brilliant, I'll take those 2 prizes. And the final card, and this is one that Andrew was very, very keen for me to talk about, is Pokemon Catcher. He said it won him, I think, 5 games over the course of the tournament. A single Pokemon Catcher. Because you can use teammates here to grab it, have 50% chance of getting a free Pokemon Catcher. Or you can use double Puzzle of Time and grab it out the discard, 50% chance. The thing is, and he said teammates especially, a lot of the time what you really want is a Lysander to win the game. But you cannot teammates for a Lysander. So you teammates for a Pokemon Catcher, and it's only a 50% chance, it's a coin flip, but you might get your opponent's Pokemon off the bench and win. He doesn't play stuff like Bursting Balloon that I've seen in other lists, because you don't need to play things like Bursting Balloon. Look at Andrew's deck list, it is all built to set up and take prizes. The only real luxuries we've got here are Mr. Mime to block bench damage and Pokemon Catcher to grab stuff out of of your opponent's side of the field. And Mr. Mime is to stop you having your entire setup wrecked by those pesky Pokemon, and Pokemon Catcher literally wins games. Every other card in this deck is built to set up, to recover, and to take prizes. And I love the list for it. It's a brilliant Gyarados list. I'm a big, big fan of it. If I were to go to a tournament and play Gyarados tomorrow, this is a list I would play, which is why it's a list I'm bringing to you. You have my word, ladies and gentlemen, that if I ever bring you experimental lists, I will make it very, very clear. The lists I'm bringing you on this channel at the moment are top lists piloted by top players who did very well in tournaments. So if you want to have a go with this deck, I guarantee you this is a good list to use. Now, you know the deal. There's a like button, click it. There's a subscribe button, click it. There is a comment section, use it. Tell me what changes you would make to the list. Tell me your experience of playing Gyarados. Follow me on Twitter @TheWassy. Click that thumbnail, which should be appearing, to watch another one of my lovely videos. I think you'll enjoy it. And of course, the most important thing as always, look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.